What's going on, people? And this is J Ghost, and this is going to be one of those big videos that I do in terms of feminism and gaming. But my problem is, Anita Sarkeesian still isn't relevant, but the problem is that when we sit here and talk about feminism and gaming, no one really understands the logic that is used. Now, this is going to be talking about the rat fem slash social justice warrior crowd, which has come up, and all they really are, if you really think about it, are social conservatives. But we give them the name rad feminist and then sit here and say, it's the liberal thing to do, or they're hipsters, Puritan hipsters, and everything. They are essentially trying to suppress women's rights by saying that the men do it. And we've known this for a long time. And for the most part, I think people unconsciously kind of understand what they're trying to do. But the thing is, people have already done it, they've done it well. And when you get the Anita Sarkeesians, the Adria Richards, and all of these other people that really don't know what in the hell they're talking about, to fight for females in video games as if there's a problem with it, they aren't really coming into this with anything more than their own agenda. So I want to sit here and I want to focus specifically on their arguments. What are you expecting? What can you expect from a lot of these people that sit here and say, well, we support feminism or we support these women's rights, whether it's digital or in the real life? And are they really helping when they have these problems just to their arguments, which everyone is already starting to recognize? But I think, instead of indoctrination, we need inoculation. So let me go ahead and let me tell you what my list is, and then you all can sit here and write me or do anything you want. Sit here and tell me if I'm right, wrong, ugly, otherwise. That's why the comments are always open. Number one, gender bias. Now, anybody that has been paying attention to the whole feminism thing realizes that in any form of entertainment, there is a strong gender bias against strong females as well as weak men. Um, the exact dichotomy of that, I don't know of any weak guys off the top of my head except maybe, Leisure Suit Larry, or what was that other guy? Nerdish people, or people that are bumpkins, those types of people in video games or anything. They're ignored and dismissed along with the strong female, which are the Laura Crafts, even though her reboot is god awful. And there's plenty, like the female protagonists that you can pick up, decide to play. Like, for example, I decided to pick up a strong female boss in Saints Row 3. Now, Saints Row 4 I didn't really play because it's just not my cup of tea. I didn't like Crackdown, and to me, the pacing was all off. So I never picked that game up. But in terms of talking about a gender bias, we see this kind of role where they go into a very strong gender role of some sort. The men are strong, the women are seen as weak, and even though no other gamer may see the same thing, that's exactly what is going through with the gender bias. That's what you can expect from any quote unquote feminist argument that is being made from the new social justice, social conservative type feminists. Number two, patriarchy. Now, this is a theory of a gendered hierarchy. What that gendered hierarchy is that men are on top, and everybody has to believe that men are on top for this to succeed. It kind of falls apart when you sit here and point out things such as, family courts and etc., or you sit here and point out that, certain types of minority men don't really have as much power as people seem to say they do. It kind of comes out to who has your privilege. That's why people sit here and go crazy about this check your privilege kind of crap. And that really doesn't help anybody, or it doesn't help the conversation move forward. It's kind of goes back into oppression Olympics. The person that has the most special minority groups formed around them, they have more power, they have more privilege than anybody else. That's why the patriarchy theory kind of falls flat. It is a decent theory, but it doesn't really come out in practice. I mean, somebody that's German, during 1890s is probably not going to have as many rights as an Irish person. Because, or let me flip that. An Irish person during the potato famine, if that's the 1890s, is not going to have as many rights as a German who was already in America before 1890 in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that's just kind of one of those things that have came through. Number three, men strong, women weak. I talked a little bit about this with the gender bias, but men will always be perceived as oppressors, as the aggressors of any initial conflict. This is actually something that comes out in real life, I guess, because guys have more testosterone, I guess. I'm not too sure about this, but I'm not positive how no man can be seen as weak when we already know that men can be seen as weak. And it's something to pay attention to, especially when you get into a feminist argument, because all women will be having no agency. And that's going to be something to point out, that you have to point out, that the person who is usually writing these types of articles is going to look at women weakly. And that's not from any man doing it. It's just usually that's their own sexism talking, which is number four. Sexism. Now, sexual discrimination. You discriminate based on sex. That's how I take the interpretation of any dictionary form. Sexism does not happen to just women. It also happens to men, because we are a sexually dimorphic species. And so, with us being, men having a penis, girls having a vagina, or having tits, we have different scenarios where sexism is involved. Someone discriminates based on sex. Usually, the person that's discriminating is going to sit here and make some crazy comments about sex that no one else believes. But we sit here and we look at it and it's like, what the hell is this person talking about? They're going crazy and they're going batshit insane. Now, if you really want to look into sexism, I'd probably recommend looking at people that are in the sex industry and listening to their plights. They usually have a very good and very strong opinion about what is sexism, and they're usually pretty accurate. Now, I don't take everything you say with a grain of salt. Don't believe anybody 100%. That's just one of the things that I've pointed out and I've seen. Now, one other thing. Number five, projection. The person that is usually causing the sexism in some way, shape, or form is usually projecting their own biases, their own gender bias in some way, shape, or form. Like, for example, Anita sits here and, I've watched the Thunderfoots videos. She had to drag bodies of females that she desecrated in order to sit here and show that men can do this in a video game. And she assumes that every last player of Hitman is a male, which isn't the case. So